Hi there. I'm Robert Martinez, State Historian of New Mexico, and this is New Mexico History in 10 Minutes. 1492, a watershed year in world history and in Spain's history. Who were those Spaniards in 1492 who were going to change the world? They were descended from Celtiberians, from Phoenicians and Greeks, definitely Romans, and then Visigoths. They were descended from Muslim Moors, Sephardic Jews, and they were definitely Roman Catholic. But they were officially Roman Catholic, yet they were actually Spanish Catholic. Their form of Catholicism had simmered for 700 years, fighting very tough, formidable Moors, Islamic warriors. So their form of Catholicism was very tough, very militant, and very uncompromising. And these Spaniards were mixed blood. They were mestizo. A lot of the terms we'll see later in the Americas to describe mixed blood people were created in the Middle Ages in Spain to describe the mixing of the many different peoples of Spain, including Catholics with Jewish people, with Muslims. So these people were definitely a unique kind of people. They were European, but not quite. They were North African, but not really. And they were ready to take their civilization around the world. Columbus and his sailors sailed for the crown of Castile and Leon. Okay? These were Spanish people. Cristobal Colon, Christopher Columbus, he sailed as a Spaniard. And he wanted to get to Asia. They thought the journey would last a few weeks. It ended up taking a lot longer. And what happened was these folks ended up in the Caribbean. So what's going on in the Caribbean? What's going on in North and South America? Well, you have Native American communities and civilizations developing and evolving at many different levels, just like people all around the world. I saw a cartoon once of Native peoples on the beach, and they said, well, I can't wait for Columbus to get here because, we've been waiting all this time to be discovered, something like that. Well, obviously it's a joke. They weren't waiting to be discovered. They were living their own lives. But they were also engaging in trade, engaging in empire building, wars, enslaving, just like human beings around the world. Now, the Aztecs were quite unique. They had been developing over about 100 years or so. Before them, there were the Toltecs, and the Mayans were around at the same time. But what's fascinating is in their cosmology, their calendar, they were waiting for one of their gods to return, Quetzalcoatl, a god that was said to have a feathered plume and a beard, and was supposed to return after leaving. And this was something that would play into the Europeans' advantage later on. But what had to happen before that was Columbus and his men had to land in October on an island in the Caribbean. And this started the Age of Discovery, 1492, okay? So what the Spaniards do first is establish themselves in the Caribbean and ultimately start to explore from there, from Cuba. And what they bring to the New World are institutions created during the Reconquista. I've mentioned this before. Government institutions, religious institutions, the encomienda system. It's a fief. It's a way of conquering people. You're supposed to protect them and Christianize them, and they're supposed to pay you tribute. This was done as Catholics conquered Moorish lands in Spain, and it was brought to the Americas. It was a form of slavery too, servitude. They also brought the Merced, the land grant system. This is a way of enticing people to live in dangerous places on the frontera, the border in Spain between Moors and Christians. Land was given to people to establish communities, which fortified the area. So this was brought to the Americas as well. The other things that were brought to the Americas were foods, animals, and diseases. Diseases will wipe out Indians in the Caribbean, but this won't stop the Spanish. They established themselves in the Caribbean, and by 1518, they're in Cuba, and they start to explore the coast of Yucatan and different areas they think are islands. They think initially they've arrived in Asia, in India, or something like that. That's why they call the local people Indians, Indios. But they were wrong. They weren't in India. They were in the Caribbean and then North, Central, and South America. So this is very important, okay? What we get is the start of globalism. The Spaniards are on a roll. Remember this, they had 700 years of fighting Muslim Moors and driving them out of Spain, but that changed them. Let me be very clear about something. When one group conquers another to create an empire, conquest clearly changes the conquered, but it also changes the conquerors, okay? So when the Spaniards expelled the Jews and the Muslims, they themselves were very Jewish and very Muslim as well. And their Catholicism, obviously, they felt was the superior religion. So these folks were on a roll. Once the Moors were expelled from Granada, Spain in 1492, they were on a roll. They were ready to keep going. So when Columbus and his sailors bumped into America, they were ready to keep that spirit of the Reconquista, the Reconquest, going. With Santiago, Matamoros, St. James, Slayer of Moors, taking them across the ocean to spread Spanish Catholicism and Spanish civilization and to remake the world in Spain's image. So I want you to think about that. And the other thing we need to consider is that these folks were not 21st century people. They were not social scientists. They were not psychiatrists. They were not ethnohistorians. They were soldiers. They were colonists. They were priests. And they had no interest in compromising or having an exchange of ideas. There will be compromising and there will be mixing and an exchange of ideas, but it won't be on an official level, okay? The Spaniards were used to this. They were used to being, on the one hand, very hardcore Catholic Spanish, but they were also used to interacting with other cultures and blending them with them and blending into those other cultures. So we'll see this is what will happen into the 1500s, 1600s, and 1700s in the Americas as the Spaniards build an empire out there. So here we go. The Aztecs, they have their own cosmology. They enslave people and they have human sacrifice. They have huge pyramids and they have a religious ideology that says the sun, for it to keep rising and setting and rising and setting, you had to sacrifice human life. You had to sacrifice human blood. Consume the blood, consume the heart of those who are sacrificed. So it's a very different kind of civilization than the Spaniards are used to. But we will see over the 20 years from, say, 1492 to 1512, 1519, we're going to see a clash of civilizations and a war between worlds that will change everyone. Thank you for staying with me. Next time we're going to get into Mexico and then finally New Mexico. Hasta pronto.